This episode is supported by Manscaped. Manscaped have kindly agreed to sponsor the podcast from the 1st of January to the 31st of January. Between these dates, you can use our promo code GTM to receive 20% off products and free worldwide shipping. January is a great time to get on these products as they have a massive January sale. If you've not heard of Manscaped before, then add the leading company in male grooming fitting and around your family jewels. Manscaped have kindly sent me their Perfect Package 3.0. In this package, you received their Lawnmower 3.0, which is a trimmer perfectly designed for your nether regions, so you no longer have to worry about snagging the bag. As a listener of Go in the Match, you get 20% off and free worldwide shipping with our promo code GTM. Head over to www.manscaped.com to grab yourself an absolute bargain.
Welcome back to the Go in the Match podcast. Today I'm joined by John Gibbons of the Anfield Wrap. Gibbo is a staunch Red and has been one of the hosts of the Anfield Wrap for many years now. Gibbo, thanks for giving up your time today, mate, and coming on the podcast.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Okay, so can you take us back to your childhood following the Reds? Where were you born and how did your love for Liverpool Football Club begin?
So I was born in Liverpool. I think like a lot of people, born in the city, you sort of give it a team at birth, really.
Yeah.
Generally, who your dad supports. And yeah, you don't really remember getting much choice in the matter, really. It's brainwashing from an early age, isn't it?
Yeah.
So my dad wasn't from Liverpool, actually. My dad was born in Cheltenham, but he fell in love with Liverpool, the football team, and the place quite early.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so when he was sort of 10, 11 was when the Beatles were starting and all that, and Liverpool, won the FA Cup in '65, and I think it just seemed a very exciting place to a boy on a council estate in Cheltenham, and so he just loved everything about the city and Shankly and all that. So as soon as he could, he moved there, which was when he was 18. So he came here for college and then just stayed, and so he had a different journey to me, if you like. Whereas for me, like as I say, it was just always there. You support Liverpool, and that's that. And so, I had all the videos when I was a kid and just used to watch them all the time. And obviously, this was in the '80s, so it was just Liverpool winning things at the end of every year. So it was loads of great players, loads of great goals, and then a nice shiny trophy at the end. So why wouldn't you want to watch that? You just used to watch them every day, really, until I was lucky enough to go for the first time when I was 8.
Yeah. So have you got any memories, like early memories from the first match you went to, or any first match day experiences?
Well, the first match I went to was the last time Liverpool won the league before, well, obviously the most recent one.
Wow, really?
So 1990 when I was 8. So I've got a really vivid memory of it because, 1998, we beat QPR 2-1 and clinched the title. And it wasn't guaranteed we were going to win the title that day. We needed Villa to drop points, and they drew at Norwich.
Yeah,
which I've since looked into. Like I can't remember, who they were playing, on the day type thing. But I've looked into it since that they drew with Norwich. I don't think I really sort of had the gauge of the league or anything going. It was just the excitement of going to watch Liverpool. I think my dad thought it might happen, and so he sort of got tickets, which was mad if you think about it. Like, think now, the idea of just going, we'll go to that game. Liverpool might win the league. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't get a ticket for love nor money, would you? But back then it was different, and they were used to success, and also there wasn't the sort of international fan base that you have now, and online tickets and all that. So I remember my dad telling me we were going and all the excitement there, then him showing me the tickets and, paper tickets back in the day, and they used to have the stadium diagram on the back and trying to work out where it was sitting. Oh, that's the entrance we're going in. We're going to be around there. We were main stand. Well, then QPR went 1-0 up, and I remember, maybe Dad saying not to worry type thing. Sometimes that happened. But then they won 2-1. Barnes and Rush scored. Mm-hmm. And then after the game, it was like, they had a bit of hang around on the pitch, and then it was announced they'd won it. And then everyone's, stood up singing "You Never Walk Alone." I remember that playing, and thinking this is brilliant. This is just like the videos where at the end we win the league, and this is great. And thinking every game is going to be like that. And then obviously, gone into the 90s, I was in for a rude shock.
So do you think, obviously, when you were going as a kid, then you knew then like this is what I want to do every week, go and watch the Reds, and obviously, like you say, you're touching on there, the 90s obviously was a completely different time. What was that like as a fan growing up?
I mean, it was, but like I still loved it. Like I am lucky, and I was lucky. So my first game, as I say, when I was 1990.
Yeah.
I had a season ticket from the age of 10.
Okay.
So I went from 0 to 60 fairly quickly. Like, so in 1992 now, they built the upper centenary stand. So all these extra tickets become available. And as I say, it wasn't that hard anyway. It was certainly not as hard as it was now, but they had all these extra tickets. They were selling these season tickets for this new stand. And so my dad just bought 2, and they were for the family, he said. Although he always had one. Do you know what I mean? And then the others were to sort of be rotated. My mum says she never got to go. She was moaning to me about that the other week. She never got to go. But me and my sister used to share one.
Yeah.
Back then, but it was brilliant, and even in that period, the thing is with Liverpool in the 90s was you'd always thought we'd get our act together soon. No one then thought it was going to be 30 years without a title.
Yeah.
So it was. We had a good team. It wasn't a brilliant one, but we had. It was coming 3rd or 4th every year. Some fans would laugh at us, people moaning about that one day. But, so you'd always felt like, then the big thing was, Liverpool just need the last piece of the jigsaw. There was so many players in the 90s who were meant to be people, meant to be this last piece of the jigsaw. But it shows that, you just always felt that we were sort of nearly there, really. So I still loved it. And there's still some great players, you're going into sort of mid-90s. You got Fowler and McManaman and, even sort of early 90s, there's you get the tail end of Barnes and Rush and things like that, and and then Collymore coming in, and there was a lot of talented players there. They just couldn't quite sort of gel it together, and or quite get enough points to sort of to get to the top. But it was still good football, and it was still going the footy every week, and it was still great.
So what does a standard match day look like for yourself now? Obviously, before COVID's come in, I can imagine being involved in the Anfield Wrap, match days must be pretty hectic for yourself.
They're not too bad, Like, you'd be surprised. Like, obviously, like with all the pre-match stuff, we like to get it out handy because, like, obviously it's got a shelf life on. So if you do a match preview, it's only interesting until the match has started, and then it's chip paper, isn't it, to use the newspaper analogy, and so you want to get it out like handy so people have got time to listen to it and enjoy it and everything. So say Liverpool play 3:00 on a Saturday, all our stuff will be out on the Friday, so we have a busy Friday. Thursdays are busy for us as well. We tend to record mainly sort of Thursday afternoon into evening, and then Fridays are quite busy, but they're okay. So then by Saturday you've done it all, really, and the social lads are busy and things like that. But I don't really. I mean, I do little bits, but we sort of muck in a little bit on match days. But there's people who do much more than me in terms of that side. I'm just like, if I see something good, I'll take a picture of it. You know what I mean? And so I'm not. I'm not at the coal face by any stretch of the imagination on match days. Like my match day, is pretty much the same as it's always been, really. And after the game, I host our immediate post-match reaction show.
Yeah.
But it's in the pub. It's the pub I'd be in anyway. The Glenbook we do it in, which is where all my mates go. They've been good to us. They've given us a space. It's a little bit rowdy, but that's what we want. Yeah. And then I host that. And then as soon as I've said, thank you, thanks for listening up the Reds, my bit's done then. And then, obviously, Andy, who's our main producer on match day, he's got to then get the show up and things like that. And so, he's got a bit of work to do. And I know that obviously there's all the written stuff, so our editor's got quite a bit to do. But even then, because we're trying to get everything out as soon as possible, like, again, you're all done like a couple of hours after the game, max. So the game finishes at 5. Say we want to have everything out by 7 because again, immediacy is important to people. If Liverpool have had a big win, people want to hear the show. They want to see the videos. They want to read the written stuff, and so it's getting it out. So we're a little bit manic for a couple of hours after, but. That's fine. And even me, I'm only probably after, and I wouldn't call me manic. I'm talking into a microphone.
So obviously we touched on there, you've been at the Anfield Wrap for a considerable amount of time now. Being a subscriber myself, obviously I've been a massive admirer of all the work and all the content that you guys put out there for the fans. Can you tell us about how you got involved in the Wrap initially?
So I listened to the first one and just thought it was great. And I knew Neil, and I'd actually done a footy podcast with Neil, which was like recorded over Skype. But we're doing this over Zoom now. But I don't know your setup. I've got a decent microphone here, the Yeti one and stuff. And sort of a bit more used to it now. Then it was just sort of shouting into laptops over like a Skype line.
Yeah.
So me and Neil tend to do it together. This other pod. It was the YNWA forum, which is still going. And they had a sort of little pod, and it was one of the first ones. But the guy who recorded it didn't live in Liverpool, so who did it all. He was sort of moderated the forum, if you like. He'd set the Skype up, but I'd always try and meet up with Neil and to do it because Neil lived in town in the city centre, so it wasn't hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'd do it in his, or we'd go to a bar or whatever, and then with them to, at least one other person who we were talking to sort of wasn't there really, and it was a bit crudely recorded, and it wasn't then. But then I went to listen to the first Anfield Wrap, and it was Neil hosting. And they recorded it in Park Street, so they hired Park Street Studios because they wanted it to be like, even though it was fan media, they wanted it to sound as good as possible. So they wanted to sort of bridge the gap, if you like, between professional recordings and supporting media. And that was, a very sort of brave thing to, not brave's the wrong word, in it, do you know what I mean?
Put yourself out.
Yeah, but they were like, they were ballsy, do you know what I mean? They were like, Park Street Studios, like, I don't know if people know it in Liverpool, but it's where like Coldplay recorded albums and stuff like that. It's like it's proper, it's a proper gaff, like, so they, I think Phil Collins owns it now actually, but anyway, so they did it there, and they used to do it on a Monday morning because no bands would want to record at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning, like, so it was always free. So they used to do that and hire a proper producer and all that, and use sort of this space. And so I heard the first one, and I was like, that's great, I want to get involved. So I was pestering Neil and Andy, who we knew as well, just from the match, really. Yeah, there's no big sort of story. You just sort of get to know people sort of from the game and from ways. And Neil and Andy had helped set up Spirits of Shankly as well, and I wouldn't say I was involved in SOS, but I went to meetings and went on marches and stuff like that. So I knew them sort of from there, but then from forums and things, and as you just from sort of real life. And so so I just pestered them really and just said, I want to come on. But it was quite hard for me at first because it was like 11 o'clock on a Monday. We work, like, so we used to have to like sort of invent meetings, and I'd always want to do the bank holiday ones, put myself down for that. But then, and they just sort of let me come on, because the good thing about the Anfield Wrap is that it'll give people a go, do you know what I mean? And we still have new people on, and you give someone a go, and if they like it and they enjoy it, then you sort of, you're happy to help them. And everyone's crap the first time, but as long as people get better. If people don't get better, then it's a worry. Then you've got to be polite. But people know whether they enjoy it or not, or whether it's for them or not, really, sort of quite quickly. So it was just me listening to it, basically being a fan and saying, I really want to come on, and then so the Mondays were a bit of a pain, but then after a year we got offered a radio show on a Friday on Radio City Talk, which is sadly no more, but was like a talk radio station here in Liverpool, and wanted us to do a show. They wanted the Anfield Wrap to do an hour, basically. I think it was cheap labour, I suppose, but but that was Friday at 5 o'clock, so that was perfect for me because I would always finish early on a Friday. So me and Neil used to work in the buildings next door to each other in the business district of Liverpool. So we'd finish and meet up at 4:45 and literally peg it across town in our suits, and we'd be up the tower, the Radio City Tower, and we'd be, they always used to laugh at us saying like we'd be through the door at 1:05, and then we'd be on the radio at 2 minutes past. You know what I mean? Like no sound checks, no preps, but it was great and it was so exciting and it was brilliant. I used to love doing that hour of radio, and it felt like you were starting everyone's weekends, and we used to have a good time, and it really kind of helped hone our sound. Really, I'd encourage anyone to try and do radio if you can, especially live radio, because it really gets you thinking about structure and about time, and podcasts are great, and the flexibility around them is brilliant, but I think having this thing was, well, part one's 12 minutes, so what are you going to do, and how are you going to fill that, and how are you going to make sure someone doesn't turn the dial to go somewhere else is really is a really good kind of discipline to learn, really, and to sort of develop. And so that was really good. But then I used to do that every Friday with Neil, and so that's sort of where we really cemented our partnership, if you like, and our working relationship, and really got to understand from each other what we thought kind of not just radio but any sort of football broadcasting, if you like, should be and should look like, and we've sort of followed that sort of structure and mantra ever since.
That's the sort of thing that I like probably the most about the Anfield Wrap is like you said before, you're getting different people on, new people on that are giving their opinions and experiences about the club and the club now, previous games, and all the content that you guys provide. That's the sort of like niche thing that I think, like talking for myself and other people, that's what people enjoy the most. Is doing the Anfield Wrap something that you'd probably years ago ever thought that you would be doing going forward, giving your opinions and stuff on the footy?
No, absolutely not. So it just sort of fell into me. I'm not saying into me lap. I mean, I shoved myself forward for it. So I suppose so, but it wasn't like I want to do this as a career. Really, I mean, the Anfield Wrap sort of split into people who maybe had aspirations to be a journalist, or were journalists. So Robbo and Andy were both print journalists. On top of that, Robbo had his own fanzine, and so he was very much in the camp of of wanting to work in the media. Well, actually, working in the media, but and also kind of understanding that place and that art form, really. Andy had done bits of writing and stuff, done match reports for the Times and things like that, and then there's still people who are involved now who are, say, contributors who want to get into this world and see the Anfield Wrap as something that can help them develop and help give them experience. And we're obviously, delighted to do that. And there's people who are doing really, really well now in sort of, the world of media who either started with us or certainly developed with us. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
But for me and Neil, like we were just working in offices in town and perfectly fine there. It's slightly different here. Neil's made a couple of films, and so he was always interested in being sort of a film producer and possibly still is. But I think for me, it wasn't like I wasn't, desperate to sort of work for a newspaper or anything or write about football, or even felt like necessarily that my opinions were any sort of, more valid. I wasn't thinking, the world is desperate to know what I think about Steven Gerrard. Like, it wasn't really that. I just listened to them and thought that sounds really good fun, and I want to sort of get involved, really. And I think that's that for, as I say, with the Anfield Wrap's a bit of a split, and there's quite a lot of people who are still involved from a contributor point of view. Maybe not necessarily the people who work there, but from a contributor point of view, for them, it's like, it's a really nice hour at the end of the day, or it's a really nice break from the, what it is they do full time. Do you know what I mean? And it's something to look forward to. It's a good hobby. It's I say, it's talking about the game. And we always have to be conscious of that, is when people come in, as for them, that might be the thing they really look forward to all day, coming in to do the show with us. So we've got to be, mindful of that, really. And not that we're all stressed out, do you know what I mean? But at the same time, do you know what I mean? Like, give people the experience they want from the Anfield Wrap.
So I know you've done your fair share of away days over the years as well. Have you got any particular grounds or matches that you've been to that you've enjoyed the most? I know a lot of
Grounds.
people that have come on have said they've done Fulham, and Fulham's one of the favourites.
Fulham's great because it's like a nice day out. It's not edgy. It's like, not wrong with a bit of edge sometimes, I suppose. But it's right by the river. It's a beautiful part of London. Like, and you can have a beer on the river, and it's all fine. Like sometimes you go to an away ground, and it's like no away fans in pubs like within 3 miles or whatever, and it's a bit of a fight to get a beer. Whereas Fulham sort of not like that. Obviously, we've had some great wins there. So I was at Fulham in 08-09 when Yossi Benayoun scored in the last minute.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. I was there Fulham 12-13 when Sturridge scored a hat-trick. That was a good day. A couple of years ago when we were sort of on the march and didn't quite make it, but James Milner scored a late penalty there and dinked it, and that was good. And we had a little lad with us, and it was his first away game, and he managed to get Andy Robertson's shirt after the game, which was like, I mean, you talking before about like, getting spoiled as a kid and thinking it's going to be like this every week. I think he had to be told by his dad that not to expect a footballer's shirt after every game. Like,
grounded.
No, Fulham's really good, and if you win there, especially, but it's just a sort of a nice day. Really, I like Newcastle. The away end shit, but I like going up there. I like the city. I went to university in Newcastle, so I'm quite fond of it. But
Newcastle's a good one. We did that in 2016 when Wijnaldum scored 2 against us. But the experience is really good up there, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the stadium's like in the city centre.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. So get off a train or whatever, or however you get there, and like. You've got your choice, haven't you? You can do whatever you want, pick your own adventure type thing, and then just like bounce over to the stadium. And so, Newcastle's a good one. I'm just trying to think of sort of others I like really.
How does the European aways compare to the domestic aways for you? Because doing myself, I've domestically I've done Newcastle, Burnley, etc., West Brom as well, but then doing Roma in 2018 and I did Villarreal in 2016, like the whole concept of European away is just completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, in terms of the ground, like you've always like got to try and get in well early and stuff, and there's always like, conscious of the policing and things like that. Really, it's not just a case of Newcastle, like 5-3 and you're sort of bouncing up the stairs, do you know what I mean? Whereas but you sort of have to plan it a bit more, have to be conscious of like different things. I mean, Roma, I've done Roma, and obviously I was at that Roma game as well, and obviously like there's a bit of history between the supporters and things, and so it's something you've got to be sort of conscious of really. And so we were obviously bust out there, and it just needs a bit more planning and just a bit more like having your wits about you, and wherever it is really. But obviously there's no better feeling than watching Liverpool win in any away ground, and the further it is, the better it feels really. And that night against Roma, obviously because they got through to the final, they win the game, but got through was incredible. And you always feel slightly privileged as well in a way, and because there's only so many of you there, and there's only so many get to watch Liverpool at Anfield, but it's a bigger number, isn't it? And as I say, I've been part of that since I was 10 with the season ticket. So eventually that sort of goes away, but I'm always conscious of it as an away fan, thinking, well, there's only, might be 2,000 or 3,000 of you there, and you're lucky to be one of them people, and it's on you to be as noisy as possible and to support the lads as much as they can, and make sure that the players can hear you because there's less of you, and so I'm always sort of conscious of that really. But you've normally had a few beers, so you don't need much encouragement anyway.
So at time of recording, we've just beaten Spurs with a last-minute Bobby Firmino header. And I know you were one of the lucky 2,000 that actually got on the ground for that. I was on the cop for the Atletico match last season, which obviously has turned out to be our last match with a full attendance in some time now. It feels like forever since being back on the ground. Can you tell us what that experience was like in terms of obviously being happy to be back on the ground, but was it strange in the fact that there was only 2,000 of you there?
It felt like more, because of sort of how they done it. So, I mean, you say only 2,000, there's 1,500 in the Kop, but then obviously 500 in the main stand. And the main stand looks a bit funny when you look over with like 500 people in it.
Was it? Yeah.
But in the Kop, it felt like there was more of us. I think because of how you're spaced out, you're sort of 5 seats away from people, and then a couple of rows in front.
Yeah.
And so you're spaced out, but you're not like miles from each other. So you're in like quite a tight little gang, but not like it feels safe.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, you've been in Anfield. Sometimes when we're 3-0 up and people can't be asked and people stream out, like it probably felt like Anfield on 85. When we're 3-0 up and everyone's made a dart for the tunnel or whatever. And so, it's you could still. I was surprised how full it felt, I suppose, because I was slapped back in the middle of the Kop as well. I was in 205, which is the block behind the goal, a little bit further up. So there's 105, 205, and 305 for those who know, and then obviously the ones to the side of that, are numbered accordingly, and they didn't open any of the threes, and so you're in 1 and 2s, and it's sort of spaced out. But yeah, it just sort of felt there were more of us really, and. The weird thing was when Spurs scored and there's just no noise whatsoever. Like, that was strange. I used to hear them like an away and go up and it's just silent. It's almost like, they're not going to count it. But no, I really enjoyed it. And obviously the things that are different, but the stewards were great and sort of trying their best to be as accommodating as possible. And, trying to help you in any way they could. People got masks on and, it was good. It was, it wasn't perfect. And, there's, obviously we want to get more in and but it was still great. It was still going to watch Liverpool go top of the league with a last minute win. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not bad, is it?
Was it obviously at the matches you can usually hear the players talk, and can you hear them more intensely then with less fans obviously?
I couldn't really from where I was.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I was just too noisy myself. Like, I was maybe a bit far back from that. I think as well, like the Kop's like a sort of contains the sound a little bit, doesn't it? I think maybe the people in the main stand would say, yeah, you can hear them more and things like that. And I'm often my season ticket was /is, I suppose, in the Centenary stand, and so sometimes you could hear people even from there. I was sort of quite far back, but you could hear it. So I think from there you could. Where's the Kop? I don't know. Just sort of does its own thing, doesn't it? And so so you didn't really sort of get that vibe really.
So you've had some great times in recent years working for the Wrap. I know as the Anfield Wrap as a whole, you've had Jurgen Klopp interviewed a few occasions, Van Dijk, and obviously you've been away on the pre-seasons when the team's been out there in different countries. What would you say the single most favourite thing that you've done personally whilst being involved in the Anfield Wrap is?
Yeah, it's a good question because obviously the sexiest stuff is the players and the and the managers, and that is boss. Like, we've done Jurgen, I think it's 4 times now.
Yeah.
And I've done 3 of them, and they've always all the ones I've done have been in America, and so that's quite cool. We go on the pre-season tours because we get better access basically, and so we're just treated like a media company there rather than here where there's a lot more rules and stuff, which is fine. Like, we wouldn't necessarily want to be at all the press conferences and stuff like that, but we can have a bit more fun with it in the summer. It's a bit more relaxed, and also the players have got a bit more time as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, so we can sort of get stuff and do stuff, and so we love the tours, and I missed it this year. But I think for us, it's just sort of it's got bigger all the time, I guess. So the last tour we did our own live shows, but also we got involved with Liverpool's. And Liverpool did so we were like JB Webster's warm up act if you like, but that's fine anytime. Do you know what I mean? I don't think you needs much warming up, to be honest with you, but we were doing it. But so that was great. So we did something in the House of Blues, which is like a really famous venue in Boston.
Yeah.
Which was 2,000 people, and that was like a riot. It was great. And then doing that, and then the Jurgen Klopp interview was the next morning. So getting up, hungover, quick shower, brush your teeth, and then off to speak to Jurgen. Like,
real.
That's not bad. Like, for the 24 hours, is it, to do like a sold out 2,000 capacity gig on the Saturday night, and then to get up on the Saturday morning and interview Jurgen. Like, that's it's not a bad weekend, is it?
So finally, the podcast is centered around Going the Match. So with every podcast we're doing, I want to end by asking, what are your top 3 favourite matches you've been to or seen?
Okay, number one's Barcelona now. I never thought any in the top be number 2, which is Istanbul, but Barcelona was just another level in terms of what happened that night, and I'll never forget it. And just going in with no expectations, and then coming out. I've got a funny story about that actually. So we did. Me and Craig did something for the BBC on Northwest Tonight, I think it was.
Okay.
So they said, "Can you come and meet us at the ground? We'll go live about 6:30 or whatever." It's like, sound, no worries. So get up there. We do this little video thing for Northwest Tonight. It's just it's just a little match preview, bit of colour for them. We're outside the ground. Goes out on the news. Happy days. It's like 3 minutes. But the BBC are funny because if they see someone who's all right and they can talk and blah blah blah, they jump on you and try and get you to do other stuff because they're he was good. We'll get him to do this as well. So I got a text from someone and saying, "I've just seen you on this, blah blah," and they said, "If Liverpool win, will you come on BBC Breakfast in the morning? If they go through, we'd love to get you to." So the BBC are based in Salford, which is obviously Manchester where Man United play. Can we get you there in the morning? And I was just laughing, thinking this is someone who hasn't got a clue about footy here because we're not getting through. So I was just like, yeah, no worries, I'll come, Sam. And then obviously they went through 4-0 and I'm on the AL doing the live show podcast. We had fucking Michael Fassbender on the post-match show with us and all sorts. It was like a riot. And then this person text saying, "So you're still on in the morning?" And I said, "I'll come, but you're going to have to send a taxi because I'm not going to be able to drive." It was I think they wanted me there for 7. So they did good enough. They said, "Yeah, sound." So they got a taxi, picked me up at 6:15, still drunken, and went and did the BBC. So that was that one. But so yeah, me looking fresh as anything on BBC Breakfast, but big smile on my face, obviously. So Barcelona was number 1. Istanbul's number 2. Everyone knows the Istanbul stuff and story, and that was incredible.
What was that experience like for you looking back on it now? Obviously, like you say, everyone knows obviously about the game, but half time obviously is well spoke about that you never walk alone. I've had Keith Salmon on here before. He went to Istanbul too, and he said, that half time you never walk alone. There was something in it. What was your obviously take on that?
I sort of disagree with Keith. I like Keith; he's a nice fella, but sort of disagree with him there. I think for me, the "You'll Never Walk Alone" was more kind of just letting the players know that we were all right and it was all right and don't worry about it. Do you know what I mean? It was because they give us this amazing journey. That team was all right, but it wasn't anything to write home about really.
Yeah.
And we hadn't expected to get through the Juventus game, and then certainly not the Chelsea game. And so we got to the final, and then it obviously all gone horribly wrong. But it was more kind of we're still with you. I certainly, from my point of view, it wasn't any sort of rallying cry.
Yeah, we're still here. Obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although you didn't have any choice because the ground was over an hour outside the city, so there was nowhere to go. It was such a weird venue for the final, and I gather the final this season is there as well. Although I think they've built an expressway or something. Someone was telling me. So it's no longer through all these tiny villages, and it's still in the middle of nowhere, but it's just quicker. So Istanbul, and also Istanbul was special because, I was 23, so it was, it felt like our final, for me and my mates who'd, there's a gang of us who started going the game together around the time of the treble, so 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
We'd had the sort of Benitez years and then the Houré years, then into Benitez, and Liverpool only got back into the European Cup or the Champions League in 2001. And so, for the whole 90s and we hadn't had it, and obviously the late 80s they were banned.
Yeah.
And so that was the something that we felt we were missing from our match day lives and experiences was as I said, I'd watched all these videos to death when I was a kid, and seeing the Liverpool fans, take over the Rome Stadium and all those red and white checked flags, they just looked incredible, and there was just so many of them, and those finals, and also all the stories, because Scousers love telling a story, don't they, around the journeys there and the booking all the trades and blah blah blah, and what it was like on the day, and we wanted our own bit of that, really, our own stories to bore our kids to death with. And so Istanbul felt like that to me. And the day in Taksim Square was incredible. And, and then getting over to the ground, getting in, and obviously what we saw sort of second half onwards as well was just sort of unreal. And so that I say that'll always be up there. It might get knocked off. I thought it'll always be number one, so who knows. But those two are sort of standouts, really. And if you are going to chuck me for the third's a little bit harder, because I've been lucky and I've been to some great ones. But again, 05, that Chelsea semi-final was great. Another thing about that is I didn't have a ticket for that. So I mentioned to you before that I effectively shared a season ticket with my sister.
Yeah.
And she was still going then. She stopped going now, really, but she was very much going then, and I think she basically stopped going when my dad started going, well, you need to start paying. So I think that was it. But no, she was going then. And so I'd been to Juventus. I really wanted to go to that Juventus game. And as I said, I thought we were going to get knocked out to that. So I didn't have a ticket for Chelsea. And I was sort of all right with it, really. But in the morning of the game, I managed to get one.
Right.
Through someone my dad knew. And he said, I've got one, but it's on its own back of the cop. And I was like, sound, don't care, in's in. So I managed to get a ticket on the morning of the game. So that's what made it more special, really, because I didn't think I was going. And then I was, and then I was there. And it was funny as well, because I was on my own, and I went to my seat and all that, like a good boy, and and then I saw my mates at half time, and I was like, "Can I come and watch the second half with you?" And they were like, "No, everyone's got to stay in the same place." Like, it's superstition, isn't it? Like, it's like, if someone gets up to go to the toilet and they score, you're trying to send them again 20 minutes later, aren't you, and stuff like that. And so basically they sent me back to watch the second half on my own, but quite right too. We couldn't change anything, and I went and found them after the game, obviously, and we sort of hugged each other and just couldn't believe we were going to a final. My mate got married that summer as well. My best friend got married that summer in Las Vegas, and so. Yeah, it was some party for a few months. Some party.
Fantastic. I think that's a fantastic way to finish, mate. So just before you go, just a massive thank you for coming on and giving up your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Nice to speak to you, mate.
If you enjoyed that episode and want to keep notified for future episodes, please make sure you subscribe, follow and share, and of course, leave us a 5-star rating. You can now follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, all at Go in the Match, to keep updated for future episodes and updates on the podcast.